Well, hello and welcome back to the show this week. I have Amanda Mueller with me today. Welcome, Amanda.
Hi, I'm so glad to be here.
Same here. This is so exciting. I'm so thankful to have met you, and we have a lot in common, a lot of time of life, different things. Priorities tend to be the same, living with diabetes. So we're here to just to share you. I'm doing more of these type of interviews and I just think it's very organic. I'm meeting women that I'm supposed to be meeting. I'm a believer in that. And just connecting with them. And, we like to hear from each other. I think that's I think that's one of the unique things about living with diabetes is it's such it's a unique community, and we really do thrive when we can kind of, you know, be beside one another and to learn these things. So, tell us a little bit. If you want to start with your diagnosis story, tell us a little bit about where this all began for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just had my 17th diversary. So I was diagnosed at the age of 24, actually. And, I know you just mentioned fitness, but I was taking dance classes at a local gym and I was like losing weight and feeling really good about my
Mm-hmm.
physique and just felt like I had so much energy.
Mm-hmm.
But some other weird things were happening to me. My eyesight was starting to kind of dwindle. Everywhere I went, I felt like I could smell fresh baked cookies,
Isn't that
which
crazy?
it is so crazy.
Yeah.
I definitely like felt like my appetite was shifting a little bit. I was so thirsty all the time,
Mm-hmm.
definitely that frequent urination.
Mm-hmm.
But I was, 24 and rationalizing away all the red flags. I
Mm-hmm.
kept thinking, oh, I just need to see the eye doctor. Or, oh, these dance classes are really like getting me in shape. And then one evening I was out for sushi with a friend of mine and he was sitting across the table from me and he was like, girl, you do not look good. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't feel well. And so he actually took me to his parents' house in Dallas, and his dad is a doctor. And so he checked my vitals and he was like, something's up. And of course, they were like, have you taken any pills? Have you taken any? They were like, no judgment, right? We just want to
Yeah.
figure out what's wrong with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I feel like I'm dying. So
Mm-hmm.
they took me to the local ER and one prick in triage. And they were like, you're in DKA. And of
Wow.
course, I was like,
Wow.
what does that mean?
Right.
So
It's a
they put me,
quick learning tool, isn't it?
yes.
Or experience. Yeah. It's like crash course in type 1 diabetes.
Right. When they were like, you have diabetes, I was like, no, I don't. They were like, well, surprise, you do now.
Mm,
And then I'll be honest, like after that, it's kind of all a little bit of a blur for me. I spent a few days in the ICU, most of which I do not remember.
mm,
And then I remember being moved to a regular room. And then, of course, that's when, they bring in a nutritionist, they bring in a diabetes educator.
sure.
I remember laying in the hospital bed, giving myself my very first injection of insulin. My mom
Mm-hmm.
was sitting there at the foot of my bed. We both cried.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It almost like brings
Yeah.
up those emotions again, saying it out loud, because it was just kind of like, what is happening to me? It felt like such a whirlwind.
Yeah.
So, it was, I think, a bit more dramatic than I even realized. When I think about it, the doctors told my folks that I'd probably only had about 24 hours left
Mm.
if I hadn't been taken to the emergency room, that my levels were higher than a lot of the levels they've ever seen when initial diagnosis happens for type ones.
Wow. So, do you have memory of hyperventilating?
No,
Anything like that? Because that was,
no.
and I think it's, those moments before diagnosis or, that stage. That was one of mine.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I have learned later that that can be one of the symptoms. And I don't, to this day, I don't even know what my number was. I don't know that my parents paid attention to what that number was. I was so out of touch with what the numbers were supposed to be, even upon diagnosis. But I was in the hospital for a whole week. This is back
Wow.
in 1982. So they really had to monitor you for a bit. So I have always been curious what that number was when I was officially diagnosed. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what the exact number was either,
Mm,
but it was enough of a scare for me to hear, that it was close, could have been close to the end for me. That's how sick I was.
yeah,
And
that's
that
incredible.
they kept acting like they were so surprised that I even like walked myself into the ER. But it was almost like an out of body experience. I mean, I
Yeah.
just felt so ill. But again, I mean, when they started explaining things to me, especially about how high the ketones were and then spilling out of my body,
Hmm.
that's why I was smelling
Hmm.
cookies. I was smelling my own
Smelling them.
body and what it
Yes.
was happening to me. Because my friends would look at me like I was nuts. They were like, why are
Mm.
you like on the hunt for cookies? I'm like, I'm telling y'all, somebody's baking cookies.
Isn't that incredible? You look back at those memories and those things that you did and said, and oh my gosh. Well, it was definitely a miracle from, it definitely,
Yes.
the timing of being out to dinner with your friend and getting to that doctor and, just escalating your diagnosis. So bravo for that. Yay.
Yes. I was
Because
in the right hands.
yes, absolutely. And you have a lot to offer this community. So you're a good example because again, you're 24, just really the beginning of life. Did anything change upon that diagnosis as far as your path? Did it interrupt what your, like your career goals were, family goals, anything like that?
You know, it didn't interrupt any family goals for me. I don't have children and children were never in the plan for me.
Hmm.
I have a younger sister and when we were kids, my little sister was always playing baby dolls and teacher and I was like cutting Barbie's hair and like building them apartments. So it just wasn't in my path. I
That's right.
wanted to
Hmm.
be a really amazing aunt and that is definitely a life goal I'm living out now.
I
So
love it. I love it.
but
Yeah.
and in terms of career, in my 20s, I don't know that I had quite figured out what I wanted to do. My
Mm-hmm.
initial path was I wanted to go to med school, and then I totally bailed on that plan, and now I'm an accountant. So,
Mm-hmm.
an interesting transition. But I really don't have a lot of memory of my life as a diabetic in my 20s. And I think that's probably just a dissociation from feeling overwhelmed, feeling out of control.
Mm-hmm.
I've had the same endocrinologist from day one,
Oh,
and
wow.
I love him. I know that's very rare for a lot
Mm-hmm.
of folks with
Mm-hmm.
T1D. We both kind of grown up together, it seems like, because he's just a few years older than me, I think.
Oh, interesting.
And
Yeah.
so he
Yeah.
was kind of at the beginning of his practice. So I'm like one of his longest term patients.
Mm.
So we've seen each other through a lot throughout the years, which is special. But outside of just having that relationship, that check-in with my endo, I didn't even know other T1Ds. I didn't know the community existed. I didn't even know what I didn't know, if that makes sense. And so
It
I think
does.
it was
Mm-hmm.
just about survival. And when I would see my doctor, making sure I was not even checking all the boxes, but enough boxes that I felt like, okay, well, see you next time in another 3 months. It wasn't really until my 30s that I started paying a little bit more attention, but it has been the last 2 years of my life where I've really taken a deep dive into it.
Mm. So what do you think pointed you in the last couple of years? Or I'm sure it was probably more of a gradual realization of, yeah. And I know you're going to explain a little bit more about what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I think for me, I got on the Omnipod 5. And so my endo was like, I think you'll love the technology. I think a tubeless pump, you'll really like the comfort level of that.
Mhm.
So I got Omnipod 5 and I was like, I was ready to throw this pod in the trash because I didn't understand it. Because Omnipod is so different than traditional pump therapy. And
Okay.
I think that's why a lot of users have some difficulty or challenges at first, is because you kind of have to rewire your thinking about how
Mm.
this pump therapy works. And I didn't know what I was doing. So I got on YouTube and found someone who was making videos about her experience with Omnipod. And so I was just like stalking her on the internet. Like, I got to see every piece of content that she puts out because this is what I needed. I needed to follow in someone else's footsteps, right? Learn from their experience that they were
Yeah.
so graciously willing to put out there on the internet.
Hmm.
And so I started following her on Instagram. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's a whole community of people out here sharing and talking about stuff. I've been living under a rock for like
Mm,
15 years. This is crazy.
yeah.
So when I started realizing how I could truly empower myself with knowledge and people to improve my life, I just like had a switch flip inside of me.
Mm,
And it really like lit a fire under me and I wanted to just know everything. So this person I mentioned is actually my T1D coach now. We've been
hmm.
working to we continuously work together, and I feel like every time we have a session, it's like another piece of graduation for me because I'm learning more, and I've been able to build these sustainable habits, and now it's about tweaking them and what do I want to do next, in my
Hmm.
journey.
Hmm. Really
So
good.
yeah, it's really been beneficial to me. But again, so incredible that I had no idea what I didn't
Yeah.
know until I knew it.
That's really good. That's really good. When I first asked you to be on the show today, one of the things that really drew me to you was you're by trade, well, you're an accountant. So, and that's a little something we have in common too, because I went to business school. I did
Okay.
accounting, worked in the accounting world for about 15 years before I jumped and, started doing coaching and all of this since then. But data, I've never really, to be honest, yes, I have. I know that we are data driven. And I
Hmm.
think with that type of a kind of that type of thinking, routine and being in balance, because that's what balance sheets are, all those accounting terms, right?
That's right.
But I really think that is an advantage. We all have our pros and our cons and our strengths and our weaknesses, but I think that's what's helped me over these years is because I really do well with routine. Almost boring. People can maybe look at me and say, "Oh my gosh, you do that." I don't eat the same things every day, but it's just consistency. But that's the way your work is too. Your work it has to be consistent. It has to be routine. It has to have it has to have um, well, you could probably explain it better than I can, just being in the room. But that has to carry over well with managing type 1, you know.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I
Yeah, I'm
think,
thinking it does.
yeah, I think just in general, diabetes loves routine.
Hmm.
Um, I think though we can do ourselves a disservice by saying we have to stay in our little box.
Hmm.
So I think with all things, fitness is also a great example of that. I think if we focus on building that foundation, understanding the basics, right? So in
Hmm.
accounting, it's understanding, how to read your financials and what are those basics. In
Hmm.
T1D, it's learning how to read those reports. In fitness, it's learning those basic movements, right? And then you can
Yeah.
start kind of graduating or building on top of those things.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
when we have a foundation to revert back to, I think it allows us to step out of the box. And so if our routine is a little bit off balance, or maybe a lot off balance, maybe we're
Yeah.
traveling or we've just been thrown some really weird things that day in
Hmm.
our world, we can go back to the basics. I find that there shouldn't be any fear in logic. So when we have a good set of basic skills that we've developed, our natural instincts kind of kick in and we
Hmm.
know we know what to do, and we shouldn't fight ourselves on those. Really, we should
Yeah.
rely on our instinct and rely on our gut. Again, no fear in that logic.
Yeah.
So I think having routine does set a good foundation for us, and then we can start dipping our toe in other pools, right? And
Yeah.
start broadening into other exciting things, knowing we have that basis to come back to.
I totally agree. Yeah, foundation is everything. And that's really how I build my coaching model. It's funny when I
Mhm.
when I start meeting with ladies, they're a little surprised that we are just kind of focusing on, just like you say, those basics. But and that same foundation, because I was MDI for over 42 years. I just went on Omnipod 5. It's about 5 weeks now. And it wasn't, for me, it was attaching something else to my body. I really think that was my
Mm.
resistance. I was doing so well with MDI, but that is really what drove me to say, okay, this is the best time. When you are dialed in, not perfect, just really aware and intuitive with what you do, what works, what doesn't work, that's the best time to make a change. Just like you say, dip your toe into something different. Even if it's trying something different when you're eating out, there's all different types of different things, trying a different exercise, pushing yourself safely. So yeah, and there's a lot of empowerment with that too, when we see ourselves succeed, and then we can slowly just keep tipping our toes, dipping our toes, tipping our toes,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm an advocate for trying new things. If anyone out there
Hmm.
follows me at all, they know I'm always talking about pizza and advocating for
Hmm.
eating pizza and feeling confident, and
Hmm.
letting go of that food fear. But
Yeah.
there's so much data, back to your point, there's just so much data available to us. And if you're not data driven like myself or like you, and that doesn't come naturally to you, I totally get it. I mean, I'm not a creative person. That's
Hmm.
not my lane. So, I love that I've got people in my life that I can reach out to for those kinds of things. And I'm
Hmm.
hoping that I can use my data driven skills to help break things down for other people and help them understand. But it's such a privilege for us to have technology like our CGMs and our pumps. I even know I haven't been on MDI for a long time, but I know that there's like pins and other apps that will even track all of that for you and produce
Absolutely.
data. So
Yes, yes.
I think it's our responsibility to sorry, there's a fly in here.
There's a fly. It's
Yeah,
okay.
I'm so sorry that we have an extra guest on the show,
That's all
everybody.
good. I love real life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's real life over here.
Hmm.
I think that it's our responsibility to want to live the life we're pursuing, and we've got
Hmm.
to take control of that.
Yeah.
And whether you feel capable on your own or you want help with a coach or just messaging someone
Yeah.
in a DM online, hey, I need help with this. I mean, the community
Absolutely.
exists for a reason, and I
Hmm.
think that's one of them. But that data is so powerful to us. It's
Hmm.
so insightful, and you
Hmm.
don't have to be a data analysis expert to make it make
Right.
sense.
Right. Right. So how do you look at your data? If you can give us an example, is it something you do on a regular basis or yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I'd love
so
to
you
learn how you do that.
Yeah, sure. So, usually on Sundays, I like to spend maybe 5, 10 minutes kind of just looking at things. There was definitely a season where I feel like I was spending more time, but that was in the initial phase. And like
Okay.
most things, when you're trying something new, there's more investment time in it, I
Hmm.
think, up
Hmm.
front.
Hmm.
But I like to look at my clarity reports,
Okay. Hmm.
in the
Yep.
Dexcom. And I like to kind of look at a couple of them. I think that the AGP report is really helpful because it kind of gives you that snapshot of where you might be running higher or lower than you want to be. And
Hmm.
then I like to move into the hourly stats report based on that and really kind of fine tune that. So am I seeing that I'm having, more time out of range, maybe 2 hours after dinner consistently? And then I'll say, all right, this week I'm going to focus on paying attention to either ratios or pre-bolusing, so insulin timing for dinner. And then
Hmm.
the following week, I'll go back to that AGP report. Did things improve? Go back to that hourly report.
Hmm.
So I'm just picking one thing at a time.
I like that.
What
Yeah.
we do in diabetes is a domino effect. For
Hmm.
example, the way we start our morning is totally going to impact the rest of our day. And I
Absolutely.
think if we are adjusting too many things at one time, we can lose sight of what's actually working for
Hmm.
us. So
Yeah.
I really just try to tweak, like I said, minimal things at one time. So it's kind of about honing in on specific things, but I do like the overview reports that kind of show you what your ongoing progress is because you can start to
Hmm.
really see some global wins.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think when you go into your endo appointment, those are some really great reports to look at or even bring up first as good talking points to say, like, hey, you know what? Last Tuesday might have been a really difficult day, but one tough day does not change our projection. And look at this report. Look how I've improved my
Yeah.
time in range by 1%. it
Yeah.
takes a lot of time to
Mm-hmm.
increase something by 1%. And
Yes,
those
absolutely.
small wins should not be dismissed. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
important.
Yeah. So do you make your own adjustments, or is this something that you talk over with your endo?
I make my own.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, I make my own. In fact, I feel like this sounds kind of bold, but I think my endo would approve this message. I think at this point, I am leading our meetings and or our appointments, and that he's there to help ensure that I'm safe. I have
Mm,
the technology I want to
understand.
use,
Yeah.
that we're on the same page with my management and why I'm doing the things that I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I will always be open to his feedback and suggestions, but he is such a great endo in a special way, in the sense that he wants to know what's working for me and
Mm-hmm.
why, so that he can tell his other patients and make
There
other
you go.
suggestions to them.
Mm-hmm.
And
I love that.
I think that's really
Mm-hmm.
cool.
That is really good. Yes, yes. Because I mean, he's human. Doctors, I think we do tend to put them on a pedestal, but they should be learning, and they can
Yes.
definitely ask us questions to learn more, to be able to. Yeah, I love that, just to apply to future patients. So tell me about fitness and exercise. I know this is a passion of yours,
Yes.
and this is something that I really want to dive into. Just to back up for just a second, I was thinking of something that this has been coming up with a few of my clients, because they've been asking about, do you look at trends more for making decisions, or are you more, and the word I use is situational or present when it comes to, because you mentioned factors, because we can get up, we can do the best we can, we can estimate what that carb count is based on where we are, based on sleep. I mean, if we're that's something to consider. I mean, I don't think we always consider that when we're making these decisions, but it is something to look back at. The clarity report, or even keeping your own data, can help you really understand why you ran higher than normal on a certain day. And then we're going to get into hormones here in just a minute, but that's another whole factor, just depending on what time of the cycle you're on. So
Oh,
I'm
yes.
assuming you are in tune with all of that. So those are all factors. They're all factors that are going to influence your decisions. And when it's all said and done, we do the best we can, and then we can just correct, make adjustments. And there's a lot of there's a lot of grace in that. So
Yeah.
yeah. So how do you kind of apply that as far as your
So,
data?
yeah, I definitely think I'm trends
More
driven.
trends?
And the reason I say that is because I'm kind of a creature of habit. Again, going back to those routines.
Mm-hmm.
My husband and I meal prep most Sundays for the week, or at least through like a Wednesday or Thursday situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that helps me, especially if we're ready to like try a new recipe or a new meal prep. Having the opportunity to eat it a few times will help me look at those trends and see what changes I might need to make. And I have a
Mm-hmm.
little app in my phone where I will log certain things. So sometimes we do what we call Chipotle bowls, but we're
Mm-hmm.
making them here. And at first, man, I totally missed the mark on that, because there's a lot more carbs in there than I think I anticipated, especially with the
Sure.
rice.
Sure.
But I mean, through some trial and error, and then going back and looking at those trends and how my body responded and the insulin timing, by the third or fourth time I got it right, I could make a note.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean that at different times of the month,
Mm-hmm.
or stress, hormones, that I could eat the same meal, do the same
Yeah.
function,
Yeah.
and have a completely different result.
Mm-hmm.
But I think again, if we've got that foundation, right, and we know what we're aiming for, and we've got some proven results, that's the best choice for us to
Right.
start
Right.
with.
Start with. Yes, I
Yeah,
totally agree.
I
Mm-hmm.
think there's certainly some situational things to look at, but oftentimes I find that those are maybe things I'm not going to circle back on. So, like, let's say we are traveling and we go to a restaurant that I may never visit again,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't nail the bolus and I run
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
high.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to mark that off for the day,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not going to come back and eat this meal again.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm probably not going to focus on that one situational thing.
Right, right. Or factor that into your overall data, insights,
Exactly.
basically. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
Just looking at your trends. I like that. Yeah,
Right. But I
makes
do
sense.
think there are some situations like Maybe you've got nerves when you're headed to an endo appointment or a dentist
Mm-hmm.
appointment, or you're
Mm-hmm.
getting on an airplane, or it's the season where we're spending a lot of time with a lot of people in heightened social situations.
Yeah.
So those could be situational times where I might know, hey, my body responds differently to these things, and I may require a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more or a little bit less
Yeah.
insulin.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then you just kind of play around with those.
Yeah.
They're not more, or they're not a part of our everyday life,
Mm-hmm.
but they may be more specific things we're having to deal with in time. But I
Yeah. Yeah.
think,
Really good.
again, if we can kind of hone into how our body responds to things and make note
Yeah.
of that, it helps us make those
Yeah,
decisions.
yeah, yeah. And I can assume that so you're 17 years now, and it takes time. I'm meeting
Oh,
and coaching a
yes.
lot of newly diagnosed, and I think there's a lot of pressure to know so much and to be really good at this, within the first year. And it's really setting those expectations and just, celebrating what they're learning along the way and just building on that. So yeah, you've
Yeah.
given us some really good points. So, what is your fitness routine? We all want to know. We want to
Yeah.
know. And has fitness always been a part of your life?
So fitness has been a part of my life for on and off for a long time. Um, I met my husband at the gym. He was my trainer. So
I
I'm
love it.
I'm the girl that married her trainer.
I love it.
But I was definitely probably more cardio and circuit focused
Hmm.
at that point in my life. This was 11 years ago
Okay.
when Cameron and I met. And we have always supported each other in our fitness journeys, but allowed each other to operate individually in that,
Hmm.
because there may
Hmm.
be seasons of life where he's been more focused on that, or I've been more focused on that. Right now, we're in a season where we're both, aligned in that
Same.
journey.
Nice.
Even if we go to the gym together, we may not be doing the same workout together, but we're there together.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of been fun. Another thing to reignite in our marriage
Hmm.
is our
Hmm.
refound love for lifting weights. Um,
Yes, I can agree with that. Yes.
yeah. So
Yeah.
my husband's always been big into strength training and swimming. Um, I have a newfound love for strength training. And I think for me, that was just about learning the benefits of it long term for T1D,
Hmm.
for, my as I'm aging, right? Like, and looking
Hmm.
forward, that strength and sustainability that I want to have and
Hmm.
control in my body, right? Like, I want to be able to know that in 15 years, like, I can pick up those boxes. What can I be doing now to train my body to feel confident about that? So I have learned that high intensity workouts and a lot of cardio are not what my hormonal body needs at this season
Hmm.
in my life.
Hmm.
So my workout routine, to answer your question, has really
Yeah.
shifted in the last few years. So now I lift weights 3 or 4 times a week. I love upper body days. God bless the women out there that love leg days. It's not me. It is not me. I don't know about you, Melissa, but it is not me.
It depends on the day. I do I have a lot of fun. I'll call them fun. Actually, ladies, it can be fun. It really is fun because there's so much gratification when we get stronger and we're trying different moves. And I don't know about you, but I do like to feel a little sore the next day.
Absolutely.
It's a little sore. It's not that we can't get up and walk around or, get out of a seat, but it's knowing that we did put enough load on that muscle to challenge it and that it's speaking to us. So legs, I do like to work legs.
Okay.
Legs take a lot of energy. And you probably know this too, that when our legs are stronger, those muscles, back and legs are the strongest or the largest muscles. And they help to build other muscles. So that's something
Absolutely.
I learned. And that's, oh, good, good. Because that's something I learned years ago. And I'm pretty sure that still stands. I don't know that they've debunked that theory. So it does help to spend some time and to go. And we are stronger than we think we are.
Absolutely, we are.
Yes.
Yeah,
Especially in the legs. We are
yes.
built to birth. The hips are strong. Um, yeah. So for instance, so you say 3 or 4 days a week. Do you
Yes.
do you fit in cardio? How does that kind of work into your every day. And
Yeah, great question. So I
yeah.
lift 3 or 4 days a week. If it's 4, it would be two upper body, 2 lower body days. On Friday
Mm-hmm.
mornings, I take Pilates.
Mm-hmm.
Pilates is new for me, just something I've been trying the last couple months. I love it. I love that it's low impact. I can tell even in my warm-ups and with my lower body days, funny enough, with squats and
Mm-hmm.
things like that, that my flexibility and mobility has dramatically increased. It's kind of
Yeah.
wild. Like the other day, I was just doing a warm-up stretch and I was like, oh my gosh, like I have way more mobility here than I did a few months ago.
Incredible.
So
Yeah.
it's really, I'm really enjoying Pilates. But I also walk a lot. I have a walking pad that lives under my desk. And now that the weather has turned nice again, and
Mm-hmm.
we're not dying in the Texas heat, getting out again. So I love low intensity, steady state cardio, which I refer to as
Yes.
LISS sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Mm-hmm.
what that means.
Mm-hmm.
So the days of me really running are kind of over. Sometimes I might do like a sprint cycle at the end of a workout, 5 seconds on or 10 seconds on, 10 seconds
Mm-hmm.
off, but
Mm-hmm.
just for a few minutes,
Right.
or maybe some light jogging. But I'm really doing a finisher with core and abs in mind,
Mm-hmm.
because I really think that something we don't focus on enough is our core strength.
Mm-hmm.
And when we
Right.
focus on that core strength, that's going to carry us forward, whether we're walking or lifting. And I don't just
Mm-hmm.
mean weights, lifting
Mm-hmm.
boxes, lifting
Mm-hmm.
groceries, just up and down, getting in and out of the car.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing how much more support we need.
Yes.
And that can be developed in the gym with light
Yeah.
weights. You don't even have to go heavy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it taps into a lot of things. And what you're talking about is really, I mean, it's functional. It's doing these movements, and it also helps with our balance, helps with our confidence as we're getting older. And it doesn't mean we have to be muscle bound, which is really physiologically impossible for us women, unless we're taking, steroids or testosterone
Right.
to an upper, that's another whole conversation. So I think I think there's two things that women, these are women that I know, women that I talk with and coach, they don't really know where to start. So they don't. There's
Mm,
an intimidation with the atmosphere of a gym, and you don't have to do these things at the gym. There's a lot of ways to do things at home. There's plenty of information, videos, access to watching people, demonstrate different exercises. But like most things in life, the hardest thing is getting started, and to have that confidence that that you really know what you're doing. And then I think what happens is that over time, let's say you're middle-aged and you've been lifting some weights. Maybe you've been doing, 2 or 3 days a week. The next question, I think, so you're early 40s, if I'm saying that right. I'm late 50s. It's never too late to start.
oh, never.
And we go back to the foundation because you're tapping into the same things that we need, all those foundational habits, working on the basics. Same comes with fitness. And I think this is something I've had to, and this is recent because I've always been a cardio girl. And I like cardio. I like to sweat. Um, but I like to lift as well. But what I'm trying to do now, is to go heavier with the weights safely, just to challenge myself a little bit more. And this takes time. This takes rethinking because steady state is good. It helps burn glucose. We all know that. So it's hard to let go of something that you've got in your toolbox to help you manage blood sugar, right?
Yes.
And it's an advantage. And steady state is good for stress reduction. It's good to get outside and enjoy the sun and, move around that way. But I think, and I would love for you to speak on this too, is the benefits of strength training when it comes to type 1 diabetes and what it
Yeah.
does to our insulin sensitivity, that magic word, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So tell us what that is and
Yeah.
how you're experiencing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, and I want to back up a second too, there's
Hmm.
such a buzzword happening, and I know we've kind of briefly touched on this before when we chatted about sustainability,
Mm,
right? Sustainable eating, sustainable
yeah.
habits, sustainable fitness. Let me just say to your point about people don't know where to start.
Hmm.
Nobody wakes up one day and is like, I know how to do this. I know how to build these sustainable habits. It takes time and patience and grace and failure to get there.
Hmm. Hmm.
And my, fitness split is kind of the term I think has definitely changed. It's even changed in the last 6 months. There was a time, I would say almost this time last year, where I even felt like I might have been overtraining. And when I say overtraining, I'm not specifically training for something. I just mean working out, right? Or
Hmm.
training for
Hmm.
life, right?
I
Training
like
for the
that.
long,
I
yeah,
like that.
training for the
Yeah.
long term, for the long haul.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, you know what? Me trying to lift 4 or 5 days a week isn't, it's not sustainable for me. This is not what I want to do. I want to walk more. I want to add something else. I want to try something else. And I want to be able to lift weights and feel excited about it. And even on days where I don't feel excited about it, I've got that discipline built into my foundation that will kind
Hmm.
of help push me there. So I think if you don't know where to get started, a great place to start is with a program. There
Hmm.
are so many apps out there that have free trials.
Hmm.
There are a lot of apps that have at-home workouts. So all you need is like a bench or a chair and a set of dumbbells, maybe some
Hmm.
resistance bands, and you're good to
Hmm.
go. Because you're
Hmm.
right, you don't have to be in a gym pushing heavy weight to
Yeah.
make progress in your life. But even movement with bands, actually have some content I created about this on my
Very cool.
IG page, where it's a whole series of strength training workouts only with your body weight and some bands.
Hmm.
And it's a great way to learn some of those moves, especially some of the compound moves. And then you can start graduating
Hmm.
into higher weights, right? Progressive overloading. But strength training not only does the basics that we know, helps us build muscle, right? Become stronger people, be able
Hmm.
to carry in those groceries and walk up that hill, but it does help with that magic word, insulin sensitivity. And strength training is interesting too, with the way our body responds to that. I know we're all different, but in my experience, strength training actually causes blood sugar to rise a little bit. Does that happen to
Hmm.
you when you're
It
working
sure
out?
does.
Okay.
Yes, I was going to ask you. That's a that's a general response.
Most people, yes.
Yeah, yeah, just based on the cortisol that
That's
kind of
right.
dumps. Yeah.
That's right. So I often will give myself a little bit of a pre-bolus even before I'm lifting. And then I'll keep an eye on those sugars. I don't find that I have to bolus in the middle of a workout, but it is not uncommon to see that rise when you're done
Hmm.
with strength training. So my best practice that I try to follow, it's about an 8-minute drive for me between the gym and home. So
Okay.
I will usually give myself my post-workout pre-bolus when I get in my car. And by the
Hmm.
time I get home and prepare my meal, I've got that pre-bolus already kind of working, and that helps protect me from having that big spike after strength training. So
Yes,
it's not
yes.
uncommon
Hmm.
to see that. And I think a lot of people associate strength training with higher blood sugar
Hmm.
because they've read that, they've seen that. But strength training actually over time helps us kind of find that balance
Yeah.
and will actually bring down our blood sugars. And then we
Hmm.
can see throughout the day or even throughout a couple of
Hmm.
days that more insulin sensitive timing happening, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
over time, because of the improvements we're doing to our muscles and our body and the way our body's breaking down that glucose through the strength training, it can help increase that wow, tongue tied,
Sensitivity.
insulin
Uh-huh.
sensitivity
Yeah, it sure can.
quite a bit. And
Yeah.
I also think it helps us stay off the roller coaster.
Hmm.
I'm not saying that cardio or high intensity workouts is bad. There's something for everybody out there. I just encourage you to move your body. So do something that
Hmm.
works for you. But I think with those higher intensity movements or the cardio, a lot of people can see more of that roller
Yeah.
coaster because of
Hmm.
the way it impacts our body and our insulin needs
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
much more dramatically, I think, in kind of like a vacuum versus that strength training, which can kind of give us those background long-term
It-
benefits that we're looking
yeah.
for.
Yeah. And a metaphor that I heard was it's really making a deposit in the bank.
Love that.
It's just knowing that this is going to, not just like you say, because it happened to me last night. I worked out, had a really good heavy workout at the gym. my gym's like 5 minutes away. So we're like on the same path. And I will bump up 40, 50 points. It's like, whoo, there goes the arrow right on the way home. And I do generally do exactly what you say too. And again, we go back to the factors. There's days that it doesn't go as high. I think that has to do, obviously, if there's insulin, it does help to have either a little insulin on board, right? And that's a scary thing too, because people don't necessarily want to work out with insulin on board, expecting a crash.
Right.
But it's just being in tune, watching the trends, watching your graph. God help our crafts. What would we? I remember doing workouts back in the day with checking my sugar before I left and checking when I think I used to carry it in my gym bag because it was all glucometers back in those days. And you were just going for it. And I can remember having really lows. But again, I didn't have the data to make decisions around the workout. Now, many of us have that data. We have the tools to really help guide us and to give us the
Yes.
information. So it is, yeah. But yeah, so do you think, so are you working with anybody right now as far as training? Is that something that you're doing on the side or?
So I'm not, so I am a CPT. I do have my training certification. I am not actively training anyone. I wanted to be able to speak to other women, whether I approached them or they approached me in our local gym with a little bit more confidence. I also just wanted to have more education and understanding myself. I have such, again, a love for strength training and fitness in general.
Mm-hmm.
So earning that certification was just kind of something for my own self, like training
Mm-hmm.
myself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I am working with some women, just I guess via DM on Instagram, that have reached out and asked for pointers or where to get started, or they'll send
Nice.
me, I love when they send me videos and they'll say, okay, I'm trying an RDL and a Smith machine today. Tear it apart. Tell me what you think of my form.
Oh,
I
how
I
fun.
love doing that. And then maybe I'll make a video and kind of give them some tweaks. But it's just
Mm,
really excites me to see women out there that are like, I want to move my body. I'm inspired to move my body. I don't
mm-hmm.
want to be afraid of the machines in the gym.
Yeah.
I have such a romance with the Smith machine in our gym. I've
Oh,
really found
yes.
some great ways to use that big guy
Mm,
to lift small or heavy weights, right?
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so seeing other women doing that and then sending me their videos, saying, look at what I'm doing, like that
Oh.
excites me so much. So
Yes, that's awesome.
I'm
You're
enjoying
inspiring
that.
them. Yes,
I'm
yes.
trying.
Yes. And yeah, I love that. And the fact that they can get your feedback and it does. It helps to inspire us because we know that the advantages and to share it with others is really important. So you mentioned Pilates, which there's a little bit of a craze right now. You can argue whether it's pickleball or Pilates. I don't know what's got more buzz out there when it comes to fitness. But I'm in my community, yoga is very, very popular. We have a lot of studios here, and some of them are bringing in Pilates alongside the yoga. I'm seeing hot Pilates, all these different forms. And I think women, there's some body weight. You can probably speak on this. It's been a while since I've done mat Pilates. I've never done the reformer. I did one kind of an intro class just to get used to the equipment, just to kind of check it out. I see the benefits, obviously. There's huge benefits. But I think the mistake, and this is just to kind of point this out, is we still need to load the muscles.
Yes.
Pilates, like you're a perfect example because you are balancing so many different types, and our body wants that. Our body wants a variety of food, it wants a variety of movement. It wants to be challenged, and it wants to rest. So that's a big part of it as well. So how do you think, because it's obviously working for you, but I think if we can just kind of inspire women today to say, hey, Pilates is amazing. We're happy you have it in your life, but don't turn your head at weight training. If that's one thing I can inspire and try to, you and I can just really help to advocate today is variety. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. For me, I think one of my favorite pieces of Pilates, and I am using the reformer. I've never done
Mm-hmm.
mat Pilates, so
Mm-hmm.
all I've done is the reformer.
Mm-hmm.
And it is definitely an intimidating piece of equipment.
It sure is. Yeah.
But I mean, she's got me, my coach has got me doing some like, I don't know. I just look at her and say, her name's Pam. I love her. I'm like, whatever you say, Pam, I think you're just making half this stuff up as we go. But she's like, no, these are real moves. But it's mostly core, right? That is what Pilates is. But a lot of the movements in there mimic movements that I'm doing in strength training.
Mm.
In Pilates, it's all body weight,
Mhm.
but it's a lot more mobility. And you can't do these mobility movements without your core. And
Mm.
like I was saying before, when you're strength training, you've got to have that core, right? You've got to have
Mhm.
that brace, whether it's upper body or lower body.
Mhm.
So I think it's really helping me be able to push some boundaries in the gym.
Yeah.
I have hit some new PRs in the last couple of months, probably more the last month, and I definitely attribute that to the fact that I've got greater core strength and
Mm.
I've got better mobility, and that's coming from Pilates. And I don't think we have to just pick one thing. Like you
Right.
said, variety, it really is the spice of life. I know that's an old saying, but it still sticks around
Mhm.
for a reason
Mhm.
because it's so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And I'm such an advocate for just find what you love. And it's
Mhm.
okay to change your mind. If you're
Yeah.
like, I want to try Pilates and you don't like it, that's okay. Pick something
Mhm. That's
else.
true.
Try
That's true.
yoga, try cycling.
Mhm.
But they all work together. But I definitely think that the Pilates is helping me advance in the gym and strength
Right.
training,
Right. In other ways. Yeah.
which is fun. And
Mhm.
I'm not gonna lie, I mean, having the aesthetic, the physique change, especially in the summer when you got a tank top on and your little
Sure.
muscles start to pop out, like that's kind of
Mhm.
fun and rewarding, right?
It
But
sure is.
at 41, I physically feel stronger than I've
Mhm.
ever felt in my entire life.
Mhm.
I'm not the skinniest or the smallest I've ever been in my life. And I um I really feel more confident about it being able to say, I'm okay with that now.
Mm.
There
Yeah.
was a time in my life where I just wanted to be thin and it
Mhm.
wasn't about
Yeah.
being fit, it was about being thin.
Yeah. I
But
do. I know.
now I want to be strong.
Mm.
And like I said, having some muscles pop out, like that's kind of fun.
There's nothing
But
better.
yeah, I mean,
It
yeah,
is.
I
Yeah.
love it when I like come through the kitchen and my husband's like, you look buff today. Like, but I also
Yeah.
know that I can lift heavy things
Yeah.
and I'm sleeping better and
Mhm.
my mobility is better and my brain clarity, my
Mhm.
brain fog has diminished and
Mhm.
my A1C is consistently under a 6.
Yeah.
And this is with all the challenges in my life of running my own accounting firm and just getting older and oh Melissa, I need your help. The hormones, they're changing for me. It's happening. It
This is
is
a perfect, yeah, this
happening.
is a perfect next segue. Yeah,
Yeah.
perimenopause. Yes. So tell us what you just mentioned a few things. But this is such a great tie-in because, and this is how I coach, and you are a perfect example. Just working again on those basic habits. And I've said this many times. It's something I focused on before I got on bioidentical hormones was I've not always, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect every day, but I focus on the basics consistently because they make me feel good, because A1C is more average. It keeps my weight at a good, everything stays, there's that routine, consistent model of a brain I have, but it's really helped me when hormones changed.
Mhm.
And, some women come to me and they're feeling all the symptoms, and I'd love to hear what you're feeling. You can share what you're comfortable sharing, but we can't just toss a pill or a cream at it. It's really important to dial in really what's making up your health,
Right.
right?
I think for
Yeah.
me, it's just the first thing and the biggest impact for me is just the change in my actual cycle. I mean,
Hmm.
I just feel like since I was 15 years old, or probably even younger, actually, since I had a period to start, I've just been like perfect 28 days, just a
Hmm.
perfect calendar girl. And it is not that case anymore.
Hmm.
And I really kind of started noticing this because if I'm planning a trip or a vacation, I would look forward at that calendar and say, well,
Sure.
no one wants to go to the beach on that
Right.
week. Like, let's pick
Right. Right.
something else.
Right.
And then surprise. So
Darn it.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's definitely some surprises that are happening to me, being early or being late. And as someone who does thrive in routine and who is a planner, I can relax people, but but I am a planner.
Yeah.
It's hard. And
Yeah.
those hormones definitely impact the way I'm feeling, and they
Hmm.
certainly impact our blood sugar.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so when we know it's coming, when we see it's coming, we have the ability, if we've spent time with that data to kind of bring that full circle, we know what moves we might need to make, right? In those
Hmm.
situational days. But when we don't see it coming and it
Hmm.
blindsides me, I feel kind of lost and helpless and a little bit out of control. And that's kind of where I'm dipping my toe in now, is definitely in the perimenopausal pool for sure.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
it's been challenging for me.
Mm.
This last month in general has been challenging. I was really sick for a week.
Mm.
And so coupled with, being really ill and then that impacting my cycle
Hmm.
amongst just the other general changes that I think are happening, November's been really difficult for me with blood sugar
Mm.
management.
Mm.
So, like all things, I just want to get educated and figure
Yeah.
out how to handle this next phase of
Right.
my life.
Yeah, yeah. And unfortunately it's not well cared for,
Right.
in the medical, because I don't think, I mean, menopause is the whole term and stage of life of menopause is just now getting public attention. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And the stigma's kind of gone, it's not a, you know, it's not a bad word or a stigma. I think there's still people that kind of cringe it when they hear it because they're just uncomfortable with what it is and what it means. Even women,
Right.
they can kind of steer away from it because they don't understand it, so it's better to just avoid it. But I know right here in the diabetes community, it's really important because menopause is tough enough with a chronic disease, when there's so many other moving parts. It can be the biggest challenge of your life, if you're not supported. And if you're not, just like you're a great example of being in touch with your data, how important it is. If there's ever a better time to be more in touch with your data and really in tune with how you're feeling, now's the time. And to be able to share that with, say, a coach or a doctor, and to communicate that and to find some ways to walk through, because everybody's different, how long it lasts, the symptoms, and how it impacts other things. Yeah, exciting stuff, but it does get better. I will say that. I will definitely attest to that. Yeah, yeah, there is light at the end of the tunnel for sure.
Well, I know I'm just in the very early stages of this.
Hmm.
And like all things I'm trying to do in this season of life is just embrace them and take what serves me and leave what doesn't, and lean into people like you and others that have experienced it and have a wealth of knowledge. Like, I mean, nobody knows everything. And
No.
I want to raise my
Mm.
hand and say, I need help, when I need
Yeah.
help. So, but I mean, even just working out, strength training in different times of our cycle means different things.
Uh-huh.
Um, I mean, I've been reading more and more about this. And even though my body isn't quite as regular, I guess we could say,
Hmm.
as it has been in the past, I do know that during different times of my cycles, because of that hormone shift, my body is stronger or weaker. And so there are different
Hmm.
things I should be doing to help support that behavior. And so I've
Yeah.
really been trying to lean into that
Yeah.
too. When it's leading up to that ovulation time, right?
Hmm.
Man,
Hmm.
that's when our bodies are fired up. If
They
you want to
are.
hit a PR or pick up heavier weights, that's the time to do it. And then a couple weeks after that, you may be like, oh my gosh, I can barely lift this 20-pound
Hmm.
dumbbell.
Hmm.
And 2 weeks
Hmm.
ago, I was lifting 60 pounds,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we just have to understand that's because
Yeah.
our bodies, our female bodies, are doing a lot of really powerful things inside that we can't see, but it absolutely impacts our outputs.
Sure
And we have
does.
to be okay with that. We just
Yeah.
have to know
Yeah.
what that means for
Hmm.
us and
Yeah.
support our bodies, related to that.
Yeah, I love that. And it's nature's ebbs and flows.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's hard. It's one of those things that, we want to say, no,
Right.
I don't want to do a slow workout today. But I think it is nature's way of just steering you into really what you need. And, we talk about the balance and the variety. That's a perfect opportunity to really figure out what that workout routine in a month, or, whatever that time frame that you want to put it around, can really be determined by your cycle. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think you can,
And
I
to
think
lean
it,
into that. Yeah.
yes, absolutely. I mean, for
Hmm.
example, like let's say you love to squat. Squatting is something that I have never thought I'd lean into, and I love squatting.
Hmm.
Um, I've hit a couple of like big PRs and I'm excited about, but sustainable habits don't have me lifting like that, right? I'm not chasing a certain weight on there.
Hmm.
But on weeks where I feel stronger, I am going to lean into that and I am going to lift heavier. And then maybe that's, you know, 3 sets of 6 or 4 sets of 6, right? Versus weeks where I feel like, oh, I feel very fatigued. I feel bloated. I just have that icky feeling, but I know it's important to move my body. Well, maybe I'm squatting half the weight and
Hmm.
I'm doing 4 sets of 10
Hmm.
instead, right? So
Hmm.
it's not hurting my body. I'm not getting the benefits of it. I'm
Hmm.
allowing my body to build that muscle and have the benefits of strength training without pushing it over the edge, right? Because we don't want to
Yeah.
overtrain. We don't want to punish our body. We can still feed our body at the
Yeah.
gym by changing what
Yeah.
we're doing with reps and with weight, and
Hmm.
still achieve those same benefits. I think that's a common misconception. Well, if I'm not lifting heavier every time, I'm not going to grow muscle. That
Right.
couldn't be further from the
Yeah.
truth.
Yeah. 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 All that happens when we're resting.
Yes, that's
Yes.
right. Rest and recovery is so
It
important.
so
Yes.
is. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Less is more. And in most cases, less is more. Yes, for sure. Well, really cool. If you if you had been told or taught something, maybe when you were diagnosed, something that you've learned, a few things that you'd wished you knew or were told in earlier days, that maybe you could give some advice to some of the listeners today.
Yeah, sure. So I think I wish that I had known about the data. I feel like we've talked a lot about data today,
We've
but
talked.
that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know that these reports were out there. So I would not encourage someone to feel like they had to learn how to read all of them immediately out of the gate. But I would definitely encourage someone to start baby steps, right? Pick one report you want to understand, or just spend a little time looking at them. We are, I think as T1Ds, we actually are high functioning individuals. And there's a lot of logic and natural instinct that we have that we may not have tapped into yet. So just spending a little bit of time with the data, asking questions, it'll kind of start to unfold a little bit for you.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're like a visual person, but maybe not an analytical person, you can visually see some of those changes.
Sure. Sure.
And those are things you should really push your healthcare team on to help you understand too.
Yeah.
I think that can kind of be left on the back burner sometimes, and it's our responsibility to advocate for ourselves and raise our hand and
Absolutely.
demand answers to those kinds
Right.
of
Right.
questions.
Absolutely. And
Um,
just have to say so in your,
yes,
in the therapy, and, all these decisions that, your team does make. Yeah.
yeah. I think community, again, I didn't know about the
Mm,
community.
yeah.
And I just started my IG account just a few months ago, and it has like created like sense of renewal for me, in my T1D management and just experience in general and in life. And I love that. And so I think there's so much more technology and social media. I mean, like Instagram wasn't a thing 17 years ago, right?
No, that's
So
right. That's right. Yeah.
if you whatever age you are, if you're newly diagnosed, I mean, tap into that. It's there, it's present. There's
Hmm.
more info and more people you could probably ever want to talk to.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
that's something I
It's a
didn't know
full.
about, and it
Hmm.
didn't exist either. And I think I think acceptance is a big one. And I know that takes time. It takes a long time.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of shame at the beginning too. Why did this happen to me? What did I do? Why am I failing? And we're not failing. I mean, if we do fail, it's because we've learned something. So what do we do with that information? And these are big asks of ourselves. And someone that's newly diagnosed or someone that's maybe been diagnosed longer than me, but hasn't taken the dive into their management like I have, may hear these words coming out of my mouth and thinking, well, gosh, that's such a tall order. And it is. But I think no one's going to take more control than we are, and just be hungry for that information, right?
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and take it at your own pace, but be hungry for it, have an appetite for it, and just start picking away at it. And it's amazing, I think, how much more you'll be fulfilled, and that feeds into the self-confidence and helps remove that doubt. There's a fitness phrase that is reps remove doubt. And I love that, because if we're in the gym and we're lifting and we're like, oh, I can't do this. Like, oh, this squat, I can't lift this weight, or I don't know how to do that move. And we keep doing the reps, the repetition, it starts to take away that doubt. And I think reps doesn't have to just live solely in the gym. I think it can be reps in our life. So the more reps you do at practicing that bolus, the more doubt is going to be removed from your life and from your brain, and the more self-confidence you have.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take a step. Yeah. Because otherwise we'll never know, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Really good. So what's on the horizon for you? I appreciate you being here today. We want to know what you're up to fitness-wise, nutrition. I know this is something you're dabbling into. Tell us what your dreams are about that.
So I'm currently studying to take my nutrition certification. I've just, the diver I'm deep going into this pool, the more I'm seeing, and the more I want to learn about it. So for me, I think the next kind of piece that I want to work on is sustainable eating. And I feel like I'm a pretty healthy eater at this point. I think, gosh, healthy is such a broad term.
Right.
I don't think any food is bad. I think food serves us in different ways, but I do think it's important that we are providing our body with the right nutrients we need, macro and micro. And especially, again, as my hormones are changing, I want to be able to be proactive. So I want to get the certification, not with the intention of going out there and like providing nutritional services to people, but it's to educate myself, and then I can help back that up with the certification and the data and the research that I'm doing. So I'm excited about that. I'm hoping to get that done before the end of the year. And I don't know what's next. For me, I just want to continue to connect with people online and work on producing content that is meaningful to me and that's data driven, that I think could potentially help others. And I hope to continue to talk to you and connect with more people like you. I mean, this has been such a wonderful experience for me. I was so honored when you asked me to come on and share, because sometimes I think nobody cares what I have to say, but you're so right. I mean, we should be talking about this stuff more than ever before. Because I am where I am because I went online looking for help and found someone that has greatly impacted my life.
There you go.
And it just kind of the ripple effect,
that
right?
Circle. Absolutely. I love it. Yes. And I'll definitely, so how can listeners find you?
So I am on Instagram. My handle is Bolus and Biceps.
I love it.
Yeah.
I was waiting for you to say it, because I know it, but I was waiting for you to say it. And we'll definitely link that right here to make it easy for everybody to find you and to follow you and to, it's just amazing. I'm so thankful to have met you and to have you here and to share your story and all of your gifts and reps
removed out.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Reps removed out. That might be the title of this episode.
We should put it on a t-shirt.
Love it. Reps
I
are
love
moved
it.
up. I
Yeah.
do too. Well, thanks
Yeah.
again, Amanda.
Thank you.
And all right, we hope you all enjoyed this show. We'll be back in here next week. Bye for now.